We're getting the spooky season started off right, my favorite time of the year, with a little bit of horror news. According to reports, A24 is leading the bidding war for the rights to develop a Halloween TV series. Can a company like A24 save this franchise, or should we just let it die? Let's discuss.
I watch so you don't have to.
Trick or treat, motherfucker.
If modern Hollywood has taught us anything, it's that nothing is truly over if there's still some money you can squeeze out of it. And the Halloween franchise is clearly no exception to that. Regardless of the fact that the last entry in the franchise was literally called Halloween Ends, in fairness, that abomination of a film was a very unsatisfying conclusion for one of the most iconic slashers in cinematic history. Relegating Micahel Myers to a side character in his quote-unquote final cinematic appearance was certainly a choice.
No, don't like that.
But maybe that's part of the reason that some people still feel like there's some meat on the bones with this franchise. And that there may be some unfinished business as it pertains to Micahel Myers. The most eyebrow-raising thing about all of this is that the TV rights are being shopped around, but not the film rights. Perhaps they feel like Halloween has kind of worn out its welcome in film, and they want to take the franchise into a new medium. According to a quote taken directly from an article found online, for clarity, while Miramax co-owns the film rights, from what we understand, there is a massive bidding war going on right now for television rights, with several different parties interested and vying for the chance to bring Micahel Myers back to life. We're hearing exclusively that A24 and Miramax are the two main parties currently in a battle for TV rights, and that A24 is currently leading the charge.
I don't care.
Now there's a lot to unpack here, but the first thing that jumps out to me about this report, or rumor, whatever you want to call it, is that it specifically mentions companies vying for the opportunity to bring Micahel Myers back to life. Now this could be just because Micahel Myers is synonymous with the franchise, they just threw his name in there not really knowing what's going to happen. I'm almost certain that no story details are in place at this time because the rights haven't even been worked out yet.
That makes sense.
But the interesting thing about them mentioning Micahel Myers, if in fact there is some meaning to it, is that I've seen a lot of people online mention the possibility of Halloween going back to its anthology story format that John Carpenter and company wanted to make the franchise once upon a time. And a lot of people feel like that would be ideal if the plan is to adapt the franchise to television. The only real issue I see with that is that we could find ourselves in a similar situation that we found ourselves in after Halloween 3.
Something very familiar about all this.
With audiences unwilling to accept the Halloween anthology concept, because when people watch Halloween, they want to see Micahel Myers and Micahel Myers alone. And again, Michael's kind of lack of involvement in Halloween Ends was a big point of contention amongst fans. So why would people accept the anthology idea this time? Granted, I'm hoping that they're smart this time and wouldn't mislead people with the trailer like they did with Halloween Ends.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
But on top of that, do we really need Halloween to be an anthology series? We already have numerous other horror anthology franchises. Why people feel the need to turn Halloween into that, I'll never really understand. It seems unnecessary and frankly not as original as people think that it's going to be. Plus, depending on who gets the rights and what kind of ideas they have, are we really going to trust someone to write several stories to make up an anthology series when they seem to have a hard enough time writing one Halloween movie with Micahel Myers?
We're doomed.
I understand people's argument that not having Micahel Myers involved would open up some story possibilities, and that would be true. I just don't know how many people will respond to that in a positive way. Including Micahel Myers, like it or not, is the smart business decision, and that's been proven many times over.
Men lie, women lie, numbers don't.
Now they could have a situation where they piggyback off of Halloween Ends, something that I wouldn't necessarily recommend, but telling an anthology series full of stories based around people and situations that were influenced by Micahel Myers' actions and his presence, basically using Micahel Myers as a backdrop, to tell stories around him. That honestly sounds like the most A24 concept that I can think of. I could definitely see a studio like that running with that kind of idea. The issue I have with A24 is the same issue I've always had with them, and even though they've pumped their brakes on this recently, they've made a lot of what would be considered pretentious horror, or elevated horror. And I don't think we need another elevated horror story set in the Halloween universe with or without Micahel Myers. I think that would deviate too far from what Halloween is, and it would cease to be or feel like Halloween in the process. You might as well just make something new at that point and not attach the Halloween name to it.
Stop it!
The most likely outcome, if this report means anything, is that the focus will once again be on Micahel Myers in some way. One thing they most certainly should not do is a prequel or origin story of any kind. For one, we already got that in Rob Zombie's Halloween movies, and I just don't think it's a good idea to further explore Micahel Myers in that way. The character's appeal is his mystique, and many films have tried to explain too much about him in the past, and every single time it has had an adverse effect on the character and the franchise.
Don't bother.
Another thing we don't really need is any kind of story based on or including Laurie Strode. If the new trilogy has taught us anything, it's that they've exhausted Laurie's usefulness in this franchise, to the point that I've actually lost all interest in seeing any story containing her ever again. Not to mention, for me personally, Laurie's story from the original Halloween to Halloween 2 and then into H2O is her definitive arc, and at that point they never really needed to do anything else with her.
Man, I'm tired of being right.
Now, if we take all of this into account, you will see that we aren't really left with much as far as fresh ideas for a Halloween TV series, outside of a brand new group of individuals being stalked by Micahel Myers on Halloween. But is that idea interesting enough to justify making an entire TV series about it? Not really. When it comes right down to it, I think Halloween and Micahel Myers has pretty much run its course at this point. I've always been of the opinion, and this was reinforced by the lackluster trilogy we just got, that certain franchises are just a product of the time they were created in, and a product of the original creators who created them. New storytellers are very rarely able to take these old franchises and return them to their former glory. If the point was to return the franchise to its creepy and atmospheric roots, then yes, that is something that I might be interested in. But they already made a direct sequel trilogy to the original film that was supposed to do that, and they failed miserably. Instead, they chose to modernize Micahel Myers, to modernize Halloween, and we saw how that turned out.
This is whack! I can't get jiggy with this shit!
I think it would be in the best interest of the franchise and the fans to not taking the chance of continuing to dilute the good Halloween name. Let the franchise rest for a while, maybe even forever. Just because you have the ability to keep making Halloween projects doesn't mean that you should. We all love Micahel Myers as horror fans, so let's do the character a favor and not do any more damage to his legacy.
Y'all be cool. Right on.